Those of us who are joining us, has been a long day since in the morning. This really testify of your love for Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba and your dedication to the Muridiyya and your interest in education and in the production of knowledge. So my paper today will look at the different ways in which Murid make space for themselves in New York City. Murid disciples form over 50% of the Senegalese diaspora, estimated between 1.5 million to 2 million people. They are found in countries across Africa, especially West and Central Africa, but also in Europe and North America, and now increasingly in South America and Asia. And what sets this diaspora apart from other diasporas and make it really a Murid diaspora rather than just a Senegalese diaspora is that wherever they live, Murid always try to build a connection with Touba, the holy city of the Muridiyya in Senegal, where Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba, the founder of the Muridiyya, is buried and where the leadership of the Muridiyya reside. Diasporic Murid are located simultaneously abroad and at home. And this double embeddedness is made possible by Murid ability, wherever they reside, to turn their living space into a place to express their faith and identity. So that Murid are always able to turn ordinary space into extraordinary place. And my talk today will look at the ways in which Murid living in New York City can make abroad home and can turn space into a Murid place. But before getting to the gist of my argument here, which will be mostly an exploration of Ahmadou Bamba Day in New York, I would like to discuss what I consider to be the concept framing my talk today. My conception of space and place is informed by the work of cultural geographers, sociologists, historians, and specialists of religious studies who conceive of space as constructed reality. These scholars offer a heuristic definition of space and place that emphasizes the centrality of culture in the process of placemaking. While space is generally perceived as an abstract geometric reality, primarily defined by variables such as size, shape, area, direction, etc., place, on the other hand, appears as a site of accumulating biographical experiences, a product of human agency. While space is detached from material form and cultural interpretations, place in contrast draws its significance from infused meaning and values. Place then is the result of an agglomeration of meanings. In sum, it is the transformative power of people, practices, objects, and symbols that turn space into place. Place then embodies both physical and semiotic qualities. So in the remaining of my presentation, I would like to look at the different ways in which Murid are able to infuse culture and value in New York City and turn this space, secular, foreign, into a place friendly to the Murid. Murid disciples in New York City use a variety of media to etch their culture on the city's cultural landscape. Their effort to produce religiously meaningful place take different forms. It involved the physical occupation of space and the creation of Murid Place by infusing New York's landscape with cultural and religious meanings. The production of Murid Place is achieved through activities such as processions, lectures, the chanting of religious songs, the qasida here, the sharing of food, and the telling of sacred narratives. So in this talk then, I will focus mostly on the celebration of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba Day in New York City, commemorated annually every 28th of July in Harlem and at the headquarters of the United Nations in Midtown Manhattan. Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba Day is the product of the meeting of two traditions, that of American cities that have a long history of dedicating special days to iconic figures as a way to recognize their accomplishment, and that of urban Murids for whom the performance of Ahmadou Bamba's memory in public space has long been a means to legitimize their presence in the city. For Murid then, the symbolic recognition conferred by the official proclamation of Ahmadou Bamba Day by mayors across the United States was not enough. They wanted to give tangible significance to the days that local government in a dozen major cities in the United States dedicated to Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. It is to this aim that Cheikh Mamor Mbake, the son and successor of Cheikh Murtada Mbake, dedicate his tour in the United States every summer. Every year, from July 22nd to August 15, Cheikh Mamor travels to 9 states and Washington, D.C. to preside over events commemorating Ahmadou Bamba Day. He spends 6 days in New York City, where the most important commemorations take place. 2 major events mark the New York celebration of Ahmadou Bamba Day: the procession of July 28th and the lecture held at the headquarters of the United Nations the same day. The Murid procession in New York City is unique. It is held in Harlem by a crowd of almost entirely Black African Muslims. There are no floats, no marching bands, playing music, no grand marshal, and no button twirling girls. The marchers' dress also set them apart. The men wear brightly colored and flowering Senegalese-style robes and pants. The women who walk behind them are clad all in white, and as they walk, men and women perform dhikr, or remembrance of God, by declaiming the Islamic credo, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. Some disciples with their books open chant Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's sacred poem with their natural voice or using megaphones. In her account of Pakistani Sufi processions across cities in England, anthropologist Pnina Wobner suggests that Sufi chant and dhikr not only purifies the marcher's heart and soul, but also sacralize the very earth, the buildings, the streets, and neighborhood through which they march. This observation is also true for the Murids of New York. Murid disciples believe that the coming of Cheikh Murtada in New York and their procession in the street of Harlem, saying the sacred name of God, is a form of therapy. Murids see direct connection between the healing power of their prayers and the improvement of living condition in the Black neighborhood since their settlement here in the mid-1980s. Marchers carry banners and pictures of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba and other Murid saints, including painting of Mam Diarra Bousso, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's mother, conspicuously displayed by Murid women, and they carry banners with slogans derived from Quranic verses, Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's writing, and also alluding to current events in the United States. Many placards feature Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's verse, a very well-known verse in Masalik al-Jinan, where he said, and I quote, "Do not let my condition of a Black man turn you away from my writings. Blackness is not a sign of weakness of mind." It is significant that in the street of New York City, with all we know about racial prejudice and anti-blackness in this country, particularly in the time we live in, it's very significant that Murid would showcase those kind of verse, certainly serving as a way to build a bridge between Murid in New York and African-American neighbors in Harlem. Now I move to the lecture quickly. We don't have time, and hopefully in the Q&A question we can dig deeper and address some of these issues in more detail.
Yeah, about if you want to be, about 8 minutes, okay. So you can.
I'll be there. The lecture at the headquarters of the United Nations that begins just a few hours after the end of the procession of Harlem is the other high point of Ahmadou Bamba Day. The Murids are keenly aware of the symbolic significance of organizing their forum at the headquarters of the United Nations. Despite the hefty cost of paying overtime hours for technicians and security personnel, Murid remain committed to holding the meeting there. Some claim that the Murid gathering is the single religious event authorized in the building premises. The Murid see in the United Nations meeting the fulfillment of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's call to humanity to join him without distinction of race or class. I have been reminded many times of Cheikh Bamba's verse where he wrote, and I quote, all people of the dry land, all people of the sea, come to the virtuous ocean of generosity. Murid see the headquarters of the United Nations as the place where the people of the sea and the people of the land meet. The same spirit informed Sheikh Mamour's insistence that speakers at the United Nations should give their presentation in official languages such as Arabic, French, and English alongside Wolof. The forum has been held in the room in the United Nations building for over 2 decades. The aim of this meeting was to educate African Americans, Africans, and all Muslims in the United States about the teaching of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba. Speakers were brought from Senegal to develop themes related to the doctrine of the Muridiyya, to the Murid economic ethos, to Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's pedagogy, and his resistance to colonial rule, as well as his philosophy of nonviolence. More recently, especially after the World Trade Center's attacks, Ahmadou Bamba's philosophy and teaching on nonviolence have been a recurring theme. Western educated, often drawn from the world of academia, are invited to speak, and the emphasis on peace and nonviolence clearly indicate Murid awareness of global politics, their willingness to have their voice heard, and demonstrate the universality and enduring potency of Cheikh Ahmadou Bamba's teachings. Thank you for your attention. I will stop here and certainly will be very glad to address any question and issues